Wow. So, needless to say, this game has an IRA problem. I think we can say that. And that's what this episode's going to be about. It's going to be about the IRA problem because we've just finished 2 weeks, about 2 weeks of this skirmish season. I've played 3 events in the past weekend, and this game has an IRA problem. And we're going to come back to this image in a bit later on. And we're going to come back to that. But let's put something on in the background. Let's put a bit of a game and session on in the background. This is from the recent Lucky Gaming skirmish in the US, and this will be me playing Chain versus Ira. I don't know why I'm hiding my equipment. He's already seen everything I have to offer, but I'm not going to talk through the game that much. So hi, I'm Finbar. Welcome to another episode of Steelfur Speaks with me, Steelfur. For those of you who follow my channel and want to know what's happening with the other content, there is Alpha content on the way. I'm kind of waiting to do a big video on the Emerald Legacy project, which I am one of the interim coordinators on. I recently did an interview with the Emerald Dojo for their last edition. So if you have overarching questions about what's happening with Emerald Legacy, please do check that out. emeralddojo.com or .org. Check. Anyway, the point is that will be linked on the Discord. You can find that. That's a really great interview with me and Kaori, who's the story lead for the project, about what we're doing and various problems and things we're going to run into. Of course, if you're here for Flesh and Blood, let's talk about Flesh and Blood. So, obviously, I have been playing Flesh and Blood now since February. Reasonably good level. The UK meta is very competitive. We have a great scene, and it's really fun. I've been really loving it. I played Kano for the whole first skirmish season, so you can understand my love of combos and my grasp of the rules is probably quite good. And here we are going into the second skirmish season, and I thought Monarch would shake things up a bit, so I thought let's play Chain. I wasn't planning on playing Chain. I was planning on being a prison boy, but I played Chain during the pre-releases, and I was like, this is really fun. I really love the combo banish gameplay, so I thought let's play Chain. And I'll give my thoughts on Chain, and I have some videos coming out about Chain deck techs and different decks I've tried and those kind of things. So, you know, if that's what you want, have a look. I'll be doing a Prism one as well because I think that's really fun. I haven't got around to Bolton yet, but I do plan on that. And we'll kind of see where I end up and what I end up playing long-term for this skirmish season. Of course, the skirmish season is Blitz. I will happily go on record and say Blitz is not my favorite format. One bad turn can blow you out. CC is a lot more controlled, a lot more time to set up a strategy, just a lot more fun and interesting. But Blitz is what we have to work with, and Blitz is what we're here to talk about today. So Blitz has an IRA problem. And so I've played a lot of games, obviously, you know, MTG, I played L5R, the TCG, I've played Versus Systems, Raw Deal, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, I've played Pokemon, I've played loads of card games, right? And we have to ask the question, to what percentage are we happy with representation of a specific deck or deck archetype in the top cut or at an event, right? Now, for me, anything over like that 30% marker in terms of overall representation of a field for a deck archetype would previously have been a problem, right? With Flesh and Blood, I actually think it's worse than that because you've got so many classes, especially in Blitz, you've got so many young heroes, that the idea that one of them would dominate the meta to above, say, 40 or 50% of the turnout and the top cut of events is actually kind of indicative of an actual design flaw with that hero, with the Blitz format. We'll get into different variations of that as we go. But specifically, and design flaw is a big word, but we'll talk about exactly what this means as we get into this subject. So for those of you who aren't aware, we've had some skirmishes from this season. We had last season where Ira was there quite a lot, balanced out a bit by Dorinthia, but there was a lot of Ira. Now we've come into this new skirmish season, and a few things have kind of changed. So firstly, we've got Monarch came out. The new Monarch heroes are rumored to be better against Dorinthia, so people have switched from playing Dorinthia to playing Chain or Prism or something like that, or Bravo. And we have the fact that, okay, Dorinthia being played less means that Ira doesn't have to tech against Dorinthia as much, which means that Ira can go straight on with their aggressive matchup and basically tech against other Iras, right? And we've also, to be fair, on the online events, had an influx of Southeast Asian players, and Ira is just a very prevalent deck in their meta. Of the Southeast Asian players I played during these tournaments, and to put in context my past weekend, on the Friday night, I played 4 rounds of competitive with the UK meta. On Saturday, for the morning, I played a 60-person event from the Netherlands, again, chain. 5 rounds in the evening. I played the Lucky Gaming skirmish, which is what we're seeing on the camera. 7 rounds of competitive, and on Saturday I played the organized play EU, which is where that slide came from that we saw at the start. We'll get back to later on. So I've played in 4 events. I've played a total of, we'll say, 23 competitive rounds in the past 4 days. And obviously I've got some of them recorded for you guys. But my point is that, you know, of those games, about 13 were against Ira. The 13 out of the 23. So over 50%. And if we look at the top cuts of the events I was in, one was 4 Ira, 2 Chano, a Bravo, and a chain. Sorry, Chano. 2 Kano, a Bravo, and a chain. One was, I think, 5 Ira. Sorry, 4 Ira, 2 Kano, a Bravo, and a chain. One was 5 Ira, a chain, a dash, and a prism, I think. And then, of course, we have this one here from organizedplay.eu. You can see player count 102, winner Ira, runner up Ira, Ira 6, Rhino 1, Kano 1, and also of the players, 36, so over a third of the field was playing Ira, and that was higher at the events that I don't have specific data for. So ultimately, oh, gone wrong there. Let me just turn this off, and just jump back into about halfway. I think is where we got to on that. Because we've got a bit desync. Yeah, around there should be fine. So you can see in there he's just blocking my massive Bounding Emigon Shadow Puppetry turn. Yeah. My camera is reversed. That's why I'm playing right to left. Just on Discord, camera is reversed. So if you're getting confused as to why I'm attacking this way, this way, then that's why. It's just so Soul Reaping would have been played first, and then Shadow Puppetry into Bounding Demigon. Razor Reflex it so that I get the card off the top of my deck. He's still on 22 health, so, pretty comfortable. And I'm on 2 chains. Yeah, so that goes through. I don't banish that because it's an E-strike. And then I pitch a card, I think. Stab with the sword. He's out of blocks. And then I finally get some damage in, which is pretty good. So, seeing the ratios of Iras, there is far too many Iras, in my opinion. I think it is skewing the meta quite heavily. And I think if you look at the Ira deck, it's essentially just too consistent for the game that we're playing, right? All the other heroes in this meta, I mean, Dory is similar, but not to the same extent. Basically, all the other heroes have a gimmick, right? It's either I'm Bravo and I play all blue, so I have to pitch and swing with this hammer, or I'm Chain, I'm banishing cards. I'm Prism and I have Phantasms, or I'm Levia and have to banish stuff. But Ira doesn't have a gimmick. She just makes her attacks more powerful. She can consistently swing for 1 and then 2, or 1 and then 3. If you've got the needle, she can consistently put that damage on the table, and nothing really interferes with that, So if you look at the Ira deck, she doesn't even really, I would say, rely over heavily on ninja cards, except for Flick Flack, which we'll get back to in a minute. Most of these 0-cost combo cards are there just to turn on the ability to stab with the daggers every turn. She's not actually playing a lot of the, leg tap. Well, I mean, she does play leg tap, Hurricane Technique, Rising Knee Thrust, but she only plays, 2 leg tap, 2 Rising Knee Thrust, 1 Hurricane Technique. So that's more of a, if it comes together, then great. It's not a, I rely on this strategy, like, say, Katsu probably. So, you're looking at Ira and you're thinking, this deck is just good. It doesn't have any weaknesses because all of the cards that it plays seem to be above curve or better, right? And it doesn't really get shaken up by anything going wrong because it can always pitch 1 blue to stab for 2 and just basically sit out the game. Right now, the main reason it can sit out the game is Flick Flack, right? For those of you, of course, aren't as familiar, this is the ninja defense reaction. It costs 0 for 4. Now, 0 for 4 usually comes with some sort of, not drawback, but some sort of spice if it's on the blue, if it's on the red. So 0 for 4, your next combo gets to defend with +2, right? So, but it basically means that it's blocking for 6, for 0, for anyone that does more than 1 attack a turn, right? Now, maybe you are a tall deck like Rhinar and you can just do 1 attack a turn and it will just block for 4. But if you're playing Chain, if you're playing Dash, if you're playing any of these other heroes, Flick Flack immediately is probably the most cost-effective defense reaction in the game. And the blue one still defends for 4, because it defends for 2 initially and then 2 afterwards. The Flick Flack is a big problem, and I don't think we can escape that. I think we just kind of have to face the facts that Flick Flack is causing a massive distortion in how well an Ira deck can defend. Because even if, you're Chain and you're setting up with a certain amount every turn, Ira does have those 6 defense reactions +2, sink belows, and it's just going to sit there and turtle and stab you every turn until you die. So that's a gameplay strategy that very few decks can match, and also very few decks can outlast. Because if Ira just doesn't need to take damage, and you're watching this game where we are 3 turns in, I have thrown a significant amount of cards at this Ira player in terms of E-strikes, shadow puppetries, like 3 attacks a turn. And the Ira player just isn't really taking that much damage. We're both on 15, but the Ira player has put me down to 15 by not attacking all that much, right? And he very much has control of the tempo, even though, as far as I remember, I went second and I've been putting the pressure on him every turn. He very much still has control of the tempo. And he knows that if I keep shackling, he can just keep defending and I'll eventually run out of steam, right? Now, okay, I need to get better at, this is with Chain, it's a fairly new deck to me, at not shackling too much against a deck like Ira, because I will just get fatigued. But the fact is that they can still do this to quite a large extent without actually expending a lot of resources. So you'll see here, defended 6 of my damage and another bit with one of his equipment. And now he's going to come in for 3, which I can either block and lose tempo, or I can take the damage. And it doesn't cost him anything. And then he can come in with the command and conquer. Right? Because he had a tunic counter. And that's playing against Ira. It's just consistency every turn. Attack, and then turn in with a thing. And okay, not everyone can play Ira well, but the thing is that Ira hasn't actually had to change that much when Monarch came out. So you also have the fact that people who've been playing Ira have like 200 plus games versus people with new heroes, which is creating a very large discrepancy in them. So what do you do about Ira? Because personally, I actually think that LSS have missed a trick here. And I know my videos sometimes get critical of LSS, and I think that's fair. I provide commentary. I'm not really here to sugarcoat it. I think they've made an amazing game. That's why I've invested in it. That's why I love playing it. I've showed my Cold Foil collection on other videos. It's mostly just Monarch and a bit of crew. It's not like some of the other people's here. But I put that money into this game because it is really fun to play, and I can't really, I love building decks for it, and I love playing with my friends, and it's been a fantastic game, and I'm definitely going to be traveling to events and things like that. But whilst that is the case, there are these bits of friction, and I think they actually made a mistake with how much Ira dominated the last skirmish season, with not actually doing anything about it this time around. I think that Ira, and we know the rules for the Blitz constructed Blitz restricted list. We know how that works. They put it in the comprehensive rules. They have a rule. They have a rule in the comprehensive rules for a Blitz restricted list, and all that would mean is that if a card is on there, you can only play 1 copy of each color of that card. So you could play 3 Flick Flacks, you wouldn't be able to play 6. And actually, I think they made a mistake by not addressing the Ira problem much earlier on. So, for example, I think they probably should have put Flick Flack on that restricted list. Or maybe put it on a restricted list for Ira, because it doesn't necessarily, Katsu is not the same beast as Ira with that restricted list. So they could have maybe restricted it for Ira alone and not restricted it for Katsu. Some people will say that gets too complicated, but I've never seen the issue with a deck building stage restriction for a specific hero. You take into account while you're deck building for a competitive event and make sure everyone knows about them. before they go in. But also, to be honest, I actually don't think that Ira is, I'll say necessary, needed, good for the Blitz meta. I actually don't think she should have ever been allowed into the Blitz meta. I think Katsu is how Ninja was supposed to play. It was supposed to be very combo heavy. I think having Ira in there has done very, I would say, negative things to the Blitz meta. I know several people I talked to about it said, I'm not playing Blitz anymore. I'm bored of playing against Ira. I feel like the only deck that beats Ira consistently is also Ira. I don't want to play that. And they've just gone on to CC and they're skipping the skirmish season, or they're playing in their local skirmish and they're not playing in any other ones. And that to me is a shame. And LSS might be thinking, oh, but constructed and sealed or what's going to be happening now. But the majority of the blitzes are still happening, or the skirmishes are still happening in lockdown areas. The majority of the skirmishes are still happening online because people can't actually meet to play in person. And failure to address the Ira problem before this skirmish season started is actually a big misstep. And, the only reason that I don't think it would have happened is either they're reluctant to take steps this early on in the game, which is not a healthy thing, by the way. Developers should kill their darlings. They should be willing to take whatever steps are indicated as needed by design and balance. They should not be holding out on a hero. Or their playtesting showed that Monarch improved the matchup against Ira a lot, and the players haven't found the answer. But I'm kind of skeptical of that. It doesn't look like any of the new heroes with their overcomplicated mechanics are playing that well against Ira with their very, very simple mechanics and all the practice that they had. So, I'm a bit on the fence as to that. Maybe Monarch will come up with a solution in a couple of weeks, but realistically, the skirmish season will be half over by then, if not almost fully over. So I don't know what the point will be at that issue. Really, I think something should have been done before the skirmish season started, whether that's ban Ira or something. And also, there's another discussion here that I want to have before we sort of move on from this topic, is that there is really no actual set strategy for how you would remove a young hero from the game. So we're told that heroes retire when they get 10 wins at a national plus level event, right? And what that means is that if you win like a PTI or a nationals or a calling or that kind of thing, you get a tick in the box, and if you get 10, that hero retires. But skirmishes don't count, and those are the Blitz tournaments. So there is actually no recipe for retiring Ira from Blitz, right? So is she just going to be around forever? Because stores like Blitz, stores like how fast the tournaments go. They like the fact they can run them online on webcam fairly quickly. They like the fact that in person they're fairly fast. People like Blitz. There needs to be a recipe for how Ira would retire from this game if they're not going to address it directly by tweaking the deck, adding something to restricted list, that kind of thing. And if they don't have that kind of mechanism in place and we just have Ira forever, then there comes a point where people like me will just stop playing Blitz, because the meta needs to change, and either we'll have something that's better than Ira, and Ira is very tuned and very polished and very good, in which case it will just have a different problem, or we'll need to have Ira removed in some way to create room for other heroes to breathe. Now, I could easily be wrong. We could remove Ira and Dorinthia could just dominate the entire event, but I don't think she will. I think removing Ira in some capacity or knocking her down a peg would actually free up a lot of breathing room for other heroes who are good against plenty of classes. Remember, we have actually got a pretty good distribution of heroes like Bravo, Dash, being reasonably good in Blitz, right? They're reasonably good in Blitz. Chain, Ira, Dash, Bravo, Kano, all really good in Blitz. They're not good against Ira every time, and I mean, Kano might have a positive matchup, the others not really. So, removing Ira would make more breathing room for those heroes to come and play, and we might see a more diverse meta. So that's it, really. This isn't really not really a complaint. Like, obviously, I'm a bit fed up having just been Ira'd for days in my chain deck, and obviously I'm working really hard to do less damage than they are. And that's a feels bad. And I do think that after this weekend, I may try Kit Chain for another skirmish, but if that goes the same way that this one did, even after my repeated testing and tweaks, I may just play Ira. I've got all the cards. If Ira can consistently beat other Ira players, then I will just play Ira. I'm not particularly precious. I would like to win. I would like to crack the chain code because I think he's more fun. But again, like, it does come down to, with these WTR heroes, and I've kind of said this before, that the base heroes are simpler to do as much damage as the more complicated heroes. You work really hard with chain to come in with like three strength attacks, right? And then your Dorinthia player just attacks you for 6 and then 5, and you've basically dealt the same amount of damage. So what's going on there? So it's a bit of a tricky one. Ultimately you're going to play what you enjoy, but also there's the competitive landscape to think about. And I think we've reached the point where I can confidently say that Ira is enough of a problem that that we just need to be aware of it. And I think I would like to see some action from LSS on this matter. And I don't say that lightly. I should clarify. I'm not an alarmist. I don't call for bans on every card that pisses me off or every card that annoys me. I'm actually very, very cautious when it comes to bans, erratas, restrictions, and all kind of things, because I think they negatively affect the game and they negatively affect people's perception of the game, as well as also affecting you as a collector who have a copy of that card. The Drone of Brutality ban for me was perfectly legitimate. It did things to the fatigue game that weren't great. It basically meant whoever got their drones at the right point and then cycled them would win, and it basically meant that you could have 2 fatigue decks playing forever and then just relying on drone to keep attacking until one of them lost. So that was good to get rid of. And also with Prism coming out as well, it was good to get rid of drone as a permanent recycling 6-cost attack that could just keep blocking Prism. So I was fully on board with the Drone of Brutality ban. But in general, I'm not that fond of bans. But what I am fond of is admitting that card games have flaws. And if you look at the likes of League of Legends, Runeterra, not League of Legends, Runeterra, Hearthstone, all of those, they actively patch and they actively balance their games. And the fact is that once you've put out a massive card game to 5,000 people, as versus your playtest team of like 20 or 30 in-house, you are going to find broken combos that don't work. You are going to find cards that are worded wrong. You are going to find issues and problems and decks that dominate in ways you didn't think. And proactively changing those is important. And we have seen 2 erratas already just to clarify how cards work, which is probably a good way for erratas to be used. But I think we have also reached the point where we can confidently say that there is a problem with Ira. And it's not just a representation problem. It's not just the Ira players are better problem. It is a problem with how consistent the deck is. It is a problem with how easily the deck can defend and shrug off big attacks from other characters and still win through fatigue. You'll see it again where my opponent is just confidently blocking with 3 cards and his tunic and coming in then with the sword for the stab. Yeah, and then the block. And then I come in for 3. Oh, sorry, this must have been one of the games that I think I won, actually. Yeah. I'm surprised because I lost a few Ira games. I won a few Ira games. This is one where I won because I basically just had some stupidly god turns with Art of War and went really, really wide. Which can happen with Chain. It's a high variance deck, but again, I mean, Ira is very low variance and doesn't really have the same risks. My last quick point just before I leave, obviously, if you like this video, please do subscribe. And then just to let you know about something that's kind of annoyed me as well in the UK matter, which is that we've got our skirmishes, and thankfully we've actually been offered in-person live sealed skirmishes, which is great. The only problem is that the skirmish season ends at the end of June, and our lockdown here won't end until the last week of June, which means that we've got 3 stores. We've got 5 stores running all of their skirmish events in person on the same weekend. And we've got 3 stores running them on the same day. Now, the skirmish season was meant to last for a month to give people and stores time to space out things. And I think it's very, very unfortunate that LSS haven't given the UK the freedom to space these events out even more. I've spoken to some of the store owners. They're not really happy because they've now got this 44-person event they have to try and sell tickets for. And okay, the one in the north is selling very well, apparently 75% sold out. That's Living Realms, so sign up quickly if you do want a ticket. Fantastic store owners. They've planned a whole day called the Fab Fest. It's brilliant. And they're going to go there. So, please do consider going to that one if you are in that part of the country. It's going to be a great event, and they've got live music and food and stuff planned. It's going to be fantastic. However, down south, obviously in London, we have our big London one, and an hour's train journey from London, we have another one, both trying to get 44 players. Now, Fab is taking off, but given that we've been in lockdown since last, December, August, long enough, there aren't really, the communities aren't that big yet, and we really need those events to go well. So, you know, the fact that these two are running side by side and probably aren't going to fill out is actually a big concern. One that I would have liked to see LSS address in a more proactive way, because it's fine for New Zealand. It's fine for New Zealand, who's open wide and can do whatever they want and play in person. But if our skirmish season in the UK, for example, and I know the shop owner suggested this, had been extended into July, we could have had one skirmish a week, and all the people who I know would love to go, myself included, would have traveled up to the different ones and participated and shown more of a strength of community. So that's kind of a bit of a frustration. Remember, this is the second time it's happened with LSS not really getting the things that COVID have done to another part of the country. So you remember with the pre-releases, they didn't let us ship out the packs until 5:30 p.m. on the Friday, after telling stores they could run Friday evening events online and at the weekend. So really, there was no way for a store to actually get the product to people to play in the Friday evening event or the Saturday event, so they had to be cancelled. And that was just a real sort of friction where it's like, if the product had arrived for some of these stores on Wednesday, if they had been able to ship it out on Thursday, it still wouldn't have arrived before Friday afternoon, probably. And it would have solved a lot of problems, given that it had already been released in New Zealand on Thursday, our time. It would have been fine. So, you know, and that was very much, I think, a misstep as well. So, you know, overall, the OP for LSS is fantastic. Great prizes, letting people do it online over webcam during the pandemic, fantastic. We're seeing some really good events, really good competition. They're really working hard to fix problems with people not getting kits on time. They're air freighting stuff to them. They're answering a lot of questions. They're handling a lot of things. And the calling they just did with the like 2 days of live streaming, that was fantastic, like genuinely fantastic. But I do think there is a bit of a ways to go in terms of awareness of how other countries are handling COVID, and a bit more flexibility to other countries to run these big events as they need to ensure people can make it and turn up. And if the local store says realistically June isn't going to work, can we run this in July? I think the response needs to be a lot more receptive to that, because I just don't think that, you know, the way it's worked, where all of those events have to run on that weekend because it's the end of a skirmish season, is actually that feasible. And I think that's something I would have liked for them to address. Anyway, that's my last point. You know, it's worth knowing that stuff is going on. I don't know if it's happening in the US as well, but, you know, let me know if it is. I myself have got a whole calendar. My girlfriend is not always so pleased about that, but I have a whole calendar full of online events I'm going to, and some in-person ones too, over the next month. I will be playing Blitz. I will be recording the games and streaming them with commentary when I have a chance to sit down and do commentary, you know, on an hour or two's worth of videos. And, you know, if you like that, let me know. If you do like to subscribe to the video, I'm really happy I've got 200 subscribers. It's more than I've ever had, I think. I've obviously had a lot during the L5R years, but I feel like Flesh and Blood is a good game as well, and I'm happy to get some of those people on my channel as well, even though I'm not, you know, a full-time content creator or that kind of thing. So that's it, really. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.